Picture this. You're sitting at your kitchen table, phone in hand, and you open your investment app expecting to see the usual number. The one that's been climbing slowly for years. The one that never quite felt real. And then you see it. 6 figures. For the first time in your life, your balance starts with a 1 and has 5 digits after it. Most people in that moment feel something they weren't prepared for. Not just excitement, something quieter, something that feels almost like relief. Like a weight they'd been carrying for so long they stopped noticing it just lifted off their chest. That feeling isn't random. It isn't just psychological. Something real changes at $100,000. The math changes. The momentum changes. The way every financial institution in the country treats you changes. And in this video, I'm going to show you exactly what that looks like. The specific, concrete shifts that happen on the other side of that number that nobody ever explains clearly. If you're below it, this video is going to show you why getting there needs to become your single most important financial priority right now. If you're already past it, you're going to understand for the first time why things suddenly started feeling different. Let's get into it. The first thing that changes is the speed of compounding. And for the first time, you can actually feel it. You've heard about compound interest your whole life. You've seen the charts, nodded along when someone explained it, maybe even used one of those online calculators and watched the numbers grow. But when you have $8,000 invested and you earn 7% in a year, your money generated $560. That's fine. But it doesn't move the needle. It doesn't change anything. You barely notice it. At $100,000, that same 7% return generates $7,000 in a single year. Without you working a single extra hour, without you picking up a side hustle, without you giving up a single thing, your money just quietly produced $7,000 while you slept, while you worked, while you went about your life. And $7,000 is real money. That's a car payment for a year. That's a vacation. That's 3 months of groceries. That's your emergency fund being rebuilt automatically. But here's where it gets more powerful. That $7,000 doesn't disappear. It gets added to your balance. So next year, you're not earning 7% on $100,000. You're earning 7% on $107,000, which generates $7,490. The year after that, $8,015. You didn't change anything. The number just keeps growing on its own. This is the moment compound interest stops being a concept and becomes something you can feel. And once you feel it, it permanently changes how you think about every financial decision you make. The second thing that changes is how fast the next $100,000 arrives. This is the part that genuinely shocks people when they first experience it. Getting from $0 to $100,000 is hard. For most people earning average incomes and saving consistently, it takes somewhere between 5 and 10 years. It requires discipline. It requires sacrifice. There are months where it feels like the number is never going to move. But getting from $100,000 to $200,000 is a completely different experience. Not because you suddenly earn more, not because you change anything you're doing, because the math starts working with you instead of just warming up in the background. Let me show you exactly what this looks like. Say you hit $100,000 and you keep investing $500 a month at a 7% average annual return. Your second $100,000 takes roughly 7 years. Your third $100,000 takes about 4.5 years. Your fourth takes 3 years. Your fifth takes just over 2. Same $500 a month. Same 7% return. But each additional $100,000 arrives faster than the one before it. The money you've already built starts doing more and more of the work, until eventually your portfolio is contributing more to its own growth every year than you are. That crossover point, the moment your money earns more than you contribute, is one of the most significant moments in any wealth-building journey. And it's almost impossible to reach without first crossing $100,000. The third thing that changes is your relationship with risk. Before $100,000, most people are genuinely afraid of market volatility, and that fear makes complete sense. When you have $12,000 saved and the market drops 20%, you lose $2,400. That's rent. That's groceries. That's something that physically hurts and sets you back months. At $100,000, The same 20% drop takes your balance from $100,000 to $80,000. That stings. But you're still ahead of where you were 2 years ago. You've seen your own balance move up and down enough times to understand something that most people only know intellectually, but never actually feel. That drops are temporary and recoveries are inevitable. This shift in how you relate to risk is worth more than most people realize, because the investors who build serious wealth over time aren't the ones who avoided every dip. They're the ones who stayed calm through every dip. And staying calm through a 20% correction is almost impossible when your entire financial life is sitting in that account and you're watching it fall in real time. At $100,000, you have enough foundation to think clearly when the market panics. And clear thinking during volatility is one of the most valuable financial skills you will ever develop. The fourth thing that changes is how your options expand. And this one surprises most people. Before $100,000, most people have essentially one financial move available to them. Save more money, put it in a retirement account, and hope for the best. The menu is short because the capital is limited. You can buy index funds with $500, but $500 in an index fund isn't going to change your life anytime soon. At $100,000, the menu expands dramatically. You can now meaningfully enter real estate investing. A $100,000 portfolio gives you the down payment on a rental property in most markets. Not a fantasy rental property, an actual cash-flowing asset that appreciates over time and generates income every month. You can now diversify across multiple asset classes in allocations that actually matter. When you have $3,000, a 10% allocation to something is $300. When you have $100,000, that same allocation is $10,000. The strategy doesn't change. The scale does. And scale is what turns small percentage gains into real dollar amounts. You now have negotiating power with lenders. There is a well-documented phenomenon in personal finance, where financially stressed borrowers pay more for the same loan than financially stable borrowers. Not because of their credit score, but because of their negotiating position. When you have $100,000 in savings, you carry yourself differently in a financing conversation. Lenders sense that you are not desperate, and the price of the loan reflects it. But the biggest option that opens at $100,000 is the most underrated one. The ability to be patient. A person with $100,000 in savings can wait for the right opportunity instead of grabbing the first one that appears. They can say no to bad deals. They can walk away from negotiations that aren't in their favor. They can take a month or two to evaluate a decision properly instead of reacting to urgency someone else created. Patience in investing is not a soft skill. It is the mechanism through which most wealth is actually built. The fifth thing that changes is the hardest one to put into numbers, but it might be the most important one. Let me tell you about a guy named Marcus. Marcus is 36 years old. He's been at the same company for 6 years, working under a manager who has quietly been making his professional life miserable, taking credit for his work, dismissing his ideas in meetings, blocking his promotion twice in 3 years. Marcus knew it. His colleagues knew it. HR had been vaguely aware of it for at least a year. But Marcus had $9,000 in savings, a car payment, rent in a city where apartments were not getting cheaper, and the math didn't support any other conclusion. He showed up every day because he needed to. Then Marcus spent 2 years being genuinely disciplined. He automated savings before he could spend them. He didn't upgrade his apartment when his salary went up. He drove the same car. He cooked more, went out less, and watched his balance climb in a separate account he deliberately made slightly inconvenient to access. 18 months after he crossed $100,000, Marcus resigned. Not impulsively, not dramatically. He had taken his time, applied to 4 companies, received 2 offers, and walked into his manager's office on a Tuesday morning completely calm. The exit conversation generated a counteroffer 21% above his current salary. He declined it because the incoming role was better for where he was going. None of that required a different version of Marcus. He didn't grow new courage. He didn't develop skills he didn't have before. He became non-desperate. And it turns out that non-desperation is worth roughly 21% of your annual salary when you're in the right room. What Marcus experienced has a name in behavioral economics. Researchers call it outside option value. When you have a real exit, not a theoretical one, a credible one, the value of every negotiation you're currently inside increases. Your employer senses it, your lender senses it, your landlord senses it. Desperation is visible, and so is its absence. Below $100,000 for most people, any "I could walk away" is at least partly a bluff. Above it, for most income levels, it isn't. And real changes the entire dynamic of every room you walk into. Now here's where most financial content stops, and where this video doesn't, because there's a question that matters more than understanding what changes at $100,000. And that's understanding why most people never actually get there. It isn't income. There are people earning $40,000 a year who have crossed this threshold, and people earning $150,000 who haven't. The variable that separates them isn't a paycheck. It's one structural decision that most people never make clearly and consciously. The decision to stop treating savings as what's left over after spending and start treating it as the first expense that gets paid every single month. Before everything else. Before the rent feels normal. Before the subscriptions renew. Before the weekend plans get made. The people who reach $100,000 don't find extra money at the end of the month. They remove the money before it ever feels available. The math on this is straightforward. Investing $1,000 a month at a 7% average return gets you to $100,000 in 7.5 years. Investing $1,500 a month gets you there in 5 years. Investing $2,000 a month gets you there in just under 4 years. The return rate matters, but the contribution rate matters more, especially in the early years before compounding has enough mass to do significant work on its own. You are the engine. Your savings rate is the horsepower. The market is the road. And in the early years, how fast you drive matters more than what the road is made of. So let's talk about what you actually do the moment you cross $100,000. 3 things. Specific ones. First, don't let the milestone become a reason to spend. This is more common than anyone wants to admit. A meaningful percentage of people who hit major financial milestones reward themselves with something major immediately after. A new car, an expensive vacation, a renovation they've been putting off. Some of that is fine. Acknowledging progress is healthy. But spending a large chunk of the milestone balance in the same month you cross it is psychologically undoing the momentum that made it possible. Celebrate in a way that doesn't reset the compound curve. Second, review your allocation and make sure your money is working as hard as it can be at this level. $100,000 is a natural checkpoint. Are you carrying too much cash? Is the fee structure of the funds you're in reasonable? Are your retirement accounts sequenced optimally? Employer match first, Roth if eligible, then additional 401k. Small inefficiencies at $100,000 compound into large differences over 20 years. The optimization is worth an afternoon. Third, set the next number immediately. Not next week. The same day, because the most dangerous thing about hitting a milestone is mentally treating it like a destination. The momentum you've built is the most valuable asset you own at this moment. The people who stall at $100,000, either actually or psychologically, miss the acceleration phase that starts right after it. Set $150,000 as the next target. Then $200,000. The machine is running. Keep feeding it. Here's the thing about $100,000 that I want to leave you with. It is not the number that matters most. What matters most is what the number proves. Every person who has ever built real financial independence passed through this exact number. Every person who retired early. Every person who stopped checking their bank account with dread. Every person who one day realized that money was no longer their primary source of stress. They all had a moment where the balance read 6 figures for the first time. And almost every one of them describes that moment the same way. Not as a celebration, as a confirmation. A confirmation that the math works, that the discipline was real, that the version of themselves they'd been working toward for years actually existed. That's what's on the other side of $100,000. Now, you know exactly what it looks like. The only question left is how fast you're going to get there.